Praise be Jesus Christ. Have you seen the video? Pastor Arthur Pawlowski out in Alberta telling the police officers and the bylaw officer, get out of my church. And this is followed up not too long ago. Pastor James Coates was thrown in jail for not following the government restrictions and going ahead and having his service. Now, people are asking me, like, what's going on in Canada? Are Christians being persecuted in Canada? I guess you can come up with whatever word you want. I don't know if you'd quite call it persecution, but definitely a disrespect. You know, respect's a two-way street. We believers, we want to be respectful to the civil authorities. But if the authorities are being very disrespectful towards us, you can expect there's going to be some pushback. Even our own Catholic cardinals have been pushing back. This is a story from about a month ago. I didn't cover it, but I'll mention it now. This is from LifeSite News, an article by my friend Pete Baklinski, and the caption was, Toronto Cardinal calls out Ford government for discriminating against churches with 10-person limit. Discrimination, let's call it that. Check this out. The Archbishop of Toronto, Cardinal Thomas Collins, has called out Ontario's government for permitting places like liquor stores and malls to operate at 25% capacity, while keeping places of worship at a hard cap of only 10 people. Like, what do you expect believers to think about this? You are only allowing 10 people in a church. In other places, in some situations, you have hundreds and even thousands of people gathering. Does worship mean anything to our leaders? Again, we're not asking that we can have jam-packed churches with absolutely no caution. That's not what we're asking for. We're just asking for a certain fairness, a certain reasonableness. The article goes on, quoting Cardinal Collins, the province has relaxed restrictions, with retailers permitted to operate at 25% capacity. Yet places of worship, regardless of whether they seat 100 or 1,000 people, must remain at a hard cap of 10 people. Next week, a funeral at St. Michael's Cathedral that has a capacity of 1,500 people will be capped at 10 people. While around the corner, dozens can enter the local liquor store and thousands will visit the Eaton Center, he said. The article goes on to say, Collins called on the faithful to contact the government and demand change. And people did contact the government, and they bumped up the restriction to allowing 15% capacity in churches. And then it speaks about Cardinal Gérald Lacroix from Quebec City. It says, he criticized his province's government for reopening movie theaters and allowing them to accommodate up to 250 people, while keeping churches confined to 10-person limit. Again, we want to be cooperative. We want to be part of the solution, but you have a cinema allowing 250 people, and people who want to worship God only allow 10? Again, the Catholic churches, and I'm sure other churches too, we're doing things very carefully. We're taking the precautions. It goes on to say, Lacroix said in a February 19th message posted on the Archdiocese's website that believers, quote, cannot understand why access to their places of worship remains limited to 10 people in the red zone, while cinemas can accommodate up to 250 people. And then he goes on to say, like, how do you explain to a family going through a bereavement? A loved one has died. They can only have 10 people at the funeral. And he says, well, it's possible for 250 people to gather at a cinema. And so, yes, as Christians, we want to be cooperative. We want to be part of the solution, but we also expect some semblance of fairness. And we proclaim that we must worship God. You want things to go well in this country? We need to honor God. We need to worship Him. Our Lord Jesus says in Matthew chapter 22, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. Viva Cristo Rey.